In the world of professional fighting, things tend to get heated, so it's common for fighters to take the rivalry outside the cage. Well, something similar happened recently when two UFC middleweight fighters, Khamzat Chimaev and Paulo Costa, got into an altercation at the UFC Performance Institute during UFC 279 Fight Week. Join us in today's video as we look at what the pros have to say about the fight between the two. First up, Dana White says these things happen in the fighting business. In a recent press conference, UFC President Dana White was asked about what the altercation between Khamzat Chimaev and Paulo Costa was about. The boss gave a very straightforward answer. According to him, things like this can happen between fighters. Dana also said that at UFC Performance Institute, they keep track of who's training where and who's doing what. But at the end of the day, it's common for fighters to run into each other and pick up an old or existing rivalry. According to White, we're in the fight business. This stuff happens, and fighters will be fighters. He also told the press that UFC knows about the risk and is prepared to deal with it. It looks like Dana is someone who doesn't shy away from reality. It's an unpleasant fact that sometimes fights don't really end at the bell ring, but it's good to know that the UFC is prepared to deal with the unpleasant situation. Next up, Jake Shield says fake gangster Khamzat Chimaev started the fight. Jake Shield, the American mixed martial artist and submission grappler, also talked about the scuffle between the two fighters. Jake was a part of the run-in between the two fighters at the UFC Performance Institute. He was helping Paulo work on his grappling techniques when Chimaev showed up with his crew. According to Jake, the Swede started yelling at Costa, telling him to fight there. The fighter told MMA Junkie Radio that 10 other guys accompanied Khamzat, who instigated Paulo to stand up and start talking back to him and his crew. Jake didn't know how things between the two fighters would unfold, and he had to be extra careful. At one point, he thought that the Swede and his crew were there to jump Paulo. Now, here's the exciting part. The grappler noticed that Khamzat started walking down the stairs while asking the Brazilian martial arts to fight. Shield thinks the entire thing was a stunt that the Swede staged for media attention. According to Jake, Chimaev wanted to fight Costa. He would have run in there and started swinging on him. Jake also told MMA Junkie Radio that Khamzat and his crew had been scoping Costa for more than 10 minutes before the altercation. It seems like they were planning to stage drama for the media. Jake also had some pretty strong remarks about the whole incident. The entire thing seemed weak to him, and the welterweight acted like a fake gangster. It seems like Chimaev started more than one rivalry during the scuffle. What's more, Kevin Holland didn't hold back either. Another UFC fighter, American mixed martial artist Kevin Holland, shared his opinion about the scuffle. Surprisingly, Kevin also shared some of Shield's views. He also thinks that Khamzat has a fake gangster persona and he's hungry for media attention. The fighter claims that Chimaev only pretends to be tough in front of the media and he's different when cameras are not present. According to Kevin, when the media isn't around, Khamzat wants to fist bump his opponents and be everyone's best friend. So it looks like many UFC pros are calling out Khamzat on his fake tough guy persona. Things got even more interesting when Holland and Chimaev got into a run-in recently. You see, after UFC 279 press conference on Friday was canceled, the two got into a highly physical altercation. Things got so bad that even the president of the UFC was shocked and told the media that what he saw had never happened in the promotion's history. Soon after, Kevin Holland gave a statement on Twitter. He said he'd only joked about giving Chimaev a beard trip before the two fighters' camps clashed. The journalist present at the event said that Khamzat kicked Kevin in the chest. Jose Young from MMA Fighting said that the Swedish fighter got aggressive out of the gate. He walked up to Kevin and kicked him. It looks like the pros claim about Khamzat doing stunts for camera attention might be true. It seems like Chimaev has built up quite a reputation among the UFC fighters. Coming up, let's see what Paulo Costa had to say about the fight. Paulo Costa is one of the calmest and most level-headed fighters in the UFC. After the news and footage of the altercation between the two fighters came to light, he stepped forward with a detailed reply. According to him, Khamzat is a bully who only fights shorter guys so that he can beat them around. Costa also said that Chimaev couldn't do that to him because he's the biggest middleweight in the UFC and can't be bullied. Living up to the funny guy persona, Paulo also called Khamzat a gourmet chicken and a fake gangster. The Brazilian took the mocking even further when he claimed that Khamzat would never fight him. Instead, he will try to fight someone with no grappling, jiu-jitsu, and wrestling experience. It looks like the things Paulo talked about after the altercation might be true because Chimaev recently decided that he wouldn't fight Paulo. Here's the interesting part. When asked about his reason for not fighting Paulo, Khamzat didn't give a straight answer. He said he won't fight someone who was already beat down and humiliated, referring to the incident of Israel Adesanya infamously dry humping Costa after knocking him out in a title match a couple of years ago. Most of the fans considered the fighter's remarks insensitive and unpleasant. There isn't a day without controversy and drama in the UFC, and let's see whether the scuffle between Khamzat and Paulo dies in the coming days or if the two will decide to settle their differences in the octagon. Now, moving on to other news from the world of UFC. UFC fans also have things to say about the scuffle. When the pros come forward with statements on the scuffle between Chimaev and Costa, the fans also didn't hold back from speaking their mind. Twitter is flooded with tweets from fans worldwide talking about the altercation. It looks like most of the people online back Paulo Costa. According to one fan, it's easy to be tough when a person has a crew of 10 people around him. Another fan said that Khamzat walked up to Paulo alone, he would have wrecked him. Many fans fans echoed Jake Shields' opinion and called the whole thing an elaborate stunt by the Swedish fighter. A lot of people believe that Khamzat had no intention of fighting Paulo at the Performance Institute, and it looks like both pros and fans are more in favor of Costa than Chimaev. Most of them think that Khamzat was faking it but wouldn't actually fight his opponents outside the stage unless there's media. And now it's important to ask whether the fighter will be able to remove the label of a fake gangster from his name and regain his credibility. Guess only time will tell. Up next, UFC fans won't get to see the most anticipated Khamzat versus Nate Diaz fight. To the surprise of UFC fans worldwide, Khamzat Chimaev versus Nate Diaz bout won't take place as the Swede misses weight by 7.5 pounds. Khamzat's weight at a whopping 178.5 while his opponent is only 171. This news stirred up a lot of noise in the fight circles all over the world. According to the fighter's team, there are medical reasons unknown to the public behind the immense weight gain. Khamzat missing the weight has given opponents in the UFC to raise questions about the fighter's career. One UFC fighter said that the real gangsters don't miss weight. More interestingly, according to a Twitter user who met Chimaev a day before the weigh-in, the fighter spent the previous night at a pub drinking large quantities of sparkling water and eating large amounts of food. Many fans speculate that Khamzat's going through a rough patch in his career and is engaging in various media stunts to stay relevant. It won't be wrong to say that if Khamzat continues to underperform and keeps getting into trouble outside the ring, his days at the UFC are limited. Lastly, Nate Diaz is to fight Tony Ferguson instead of Khamzat Chimaev. Khamzat's missing weight created a lot of noise and panic. Fans were wondering who would replace him to fight Nate Diaz. Well, it looks like the UFC president Dana White has solved the problem. Diaz will fight against Tony Ferguson on Saturday night at T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas. Tony is an American mixed martial artist who's been with the UFC since winning the Ultimate Fighter 13 in 2011. It's expected to be a very interesting fight, especially after the Chimaev versus Costa altercation. And that's a wrap for this video. How do you feel about the Khamzat Chimaev Paulo Costa gym scuffle? Also, had there been a fight between the two, who do you think would have won? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. I'll see you next time.